Hello everyone, and welcome to the premiere of Cooking with the Koyas. My name is Ivo, and you know, for years I've been sharing my favorite recipes, my tips, techniques that I've learned over the years with friends and families, and now it's time to share them with you. I have plenty to share, but on this first episode, we're going to open up with bread making, because after all, everyone should be able to make a fantastic loaf of bread right at home, and you will too. Even if you've never cooked before or never baked before, you will be able to make this bread recipe. And I want to thank Jim Leahy from Sullivan Bakery for introducing the world to his no-knead recipe. And here is my take. I'm going to share some different tips and my little twist to things that's going to make for an outstanding loaf of bread. Very, very simple. You're going to see how easy this is, but you're also going to see fantastic results. First thing we're going to do is we're going to weigh some flour. And I say weigh flour. We need 400 grams of flour. Now, 400 grams is 3 cups, but 3 cups is going to weigh more or less than 400 grams. You want exactly 400 grams. And one of the tips I like to do, I like to sift my flour. So, by sifting your flour, it aerates it, it makes it lighter and fluffier and much more easier to use, and it's easier for your yeast to work. So I am going to sift myself 400 grams of flour. Now, if you don't have a sifter, you could use a strainer. This will do the same thing. One way or another, you want to aerate that flour. And as far as the flour I'm using, I like to use, if you can, use the flour best for bread because it's got a strong gluten content. But if not, just regular white flour will do. I personally prefer unbleached. Okay, let me get this to 400 grams. So we have our 400 grams of sifted flour, and now what we're going to do is add the rest of our dry ingredients. I'm going to use instant yeast, and I like to keep my yeast in the refrigerator. It keeps it fresh. So all you need here is 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. That's it. And you don't have to get it started or anything. Just put it right into your flour and just stir it into your flour. 1 teaspoon up to 1.5 teaspoons of salt, whatever you prefer. You like a little more, use 1.5. You like a little less, just use 1. Add your salt, mix that in. Okay, dry ingredients are done. Now, liquid. Recipe calls for water. One of the things that I have learned is I use milk. In fact, I use skim milk, and it makes a huge, huge difference. And I'm going to show you after the bread is made how much of a difference it makes by using the milk. So you need 320 grams of milk. The beauty with liquid is you can measure it and you'll have the same weight as you would if you weighed it. So 320 grams is the same as 320 milliliters. So I have 320 milliliters of milk. I'm going to pop it in the microwave for 30 seconds just to take the chill out. It'll give the yeast a little bit of a head start. So in the micro it goes, just for 30 seconds, just to take the chill out. "30 seconds is up." Okay. So now we just take our milk, our skim milk. You could use any milk you like, but skim is almost like water. It's very watery, and it's a great replacement for water. Now, all I've done now is I've got everything in there, and I like to use a spatula that's a little bit firm as opposed to flimsy, and I'll incorporate all these ingredients together. Now, if you don't have a spatula, you can use a wooden spoon, works fine. Of course, you can also use your hands, but you're going to see it's pretty goopy. So with the spatula, I'm able to just scrape the edges and just get it all incorporated really nice. So this takes about 15 to 20 seconds. That's it. In fact, I'm done already. So I'm just going to scrape the edges, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. That's it right there. That's it right there. So that's the beginning of a beautiful loaf of bread. So all I do now is I take a little bit of plastic wrap and I'm going to cover it. Okay. And then with a tea towel, what I'm going to do Cover it up nicely. Now, you can leave this on the counter if your house is a little bit cooler. A handy thing to do is just pop it in the microwave and just let it sit there, because now what it has to do, it has to sit there for 12 to 14 hours. Now, to save on time, I started one already last night. So this one has been sitting actually for 13 hours. It's been sitting for 13 hours, and I want to show you the difference and what it should look like after 13 hours. It's a little bit bubbly. It has grown, and it's got a nice aroma to it already. And what it does is it develops flavors, and that's why you only need a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, because it's a slow rise. So now, again, with a little bit of flour on the table, and I'm going to share a couple more tips that I like to do. First thing, to get this out of the pan, it's going to be sticking very much. So you don't want to go in there with your hand because it's so sticky. And also, you don't want it to tear away from the edge. So what I do is I just use my spatula and just work it around and get it to come out of your pot and right onto the floured surface. Okay, there we go. Now comes what they call a fourfold. This is also very easy, but it's very, very sticky. So to work with your hands, take the flour, take a little bit of flour, just flour your hands a bit. You can see how sticky it is. Take one end and just flop it over, just like that. Take the other end, flop it over. Take the side, over, the other side, over. That's it. You can do a couple more if you want, but you don't need to. Okay? Then the other thing I like to do is shape my bread, just get it into a round shape. And an easy way to do this is just put it on a dry counter and just pull it towards you and kind of roll it into a nice round. Okay? And if you find that the dough is sticking to your hands, just put a little bit of flour on, and that's it. Okay, so I think we've got a decent round shape right there. Now I'm going to show you the next thing I do, which is a little bit of a tip and a trick that helps me out a lot. So now what I like to do is I get a cutting board, and I'm going to sprinkle some shredded wheat on the cutting board. Right from my cereal, I just take some shredded wheat and I break them up. I break them up into fine little pieces. In fact, you know the pieces that are left in the bottom of your cereal bag when you're done? Those are perfect. And what I do is I sprinkle those on my cutting board. And I'm going to explain why I do this. Now, if you don't have shredded wheat, another alternative is to use oatmeal. So here is just some regular oatmeal. And you could sprinkle oatmeal. And today I'll use both just to show you the difference. And basically what this does, I'm going to put my nice bread dough on top, and then I'm going to take some of this flour and I'm just going to sprinkle it on the top. Okay, and then another towel, and we're going to let it rest now for 2 hours. But the reason for the oatmeal and that shredded wheat is basically just to keep the dough from sticking. You don't want it to stick to your cutting board, and then I'll show you how easy it is to get off the board and into our pot. So this now has to rest for 2 hours, and then we'll be back and fire up the oven and show you the rest of the technique. Okay, so it's been an hour and a half, and now it's time to preheat the oven. Our bread is rising very nicely. We're just going to leave it alone, and in the oven we're going to put a pot with a lid on it. Ideally, a Dutch oven. As you can see, I have 2 Dutch ovens here, an oval one and a round one. Makes no difference. They're about 4.6, 4.7 liter in size, so the bigger the better. But this size here, perfect size for bread. I'm going to use the oval one today. As you can see, I've used this a number of times. It is seasoned very, very nicely. It's made myself a lot of loaves of bread. So I'm going to put this, goes in the oven, completely bone dry and empty, with the lid on. We're going to preheat at 475. In the oven it goes, 475. Okay, perfect. So we want that oven, we want that Dutch oven to be preheated very, very nicely. So a 30-minute preheat is absolutely perfect. You could preheat longer if you like, but the whole idea is to get yourself a hot pot to put the dough in. Okay, we're gonna let 30 minutes go by, and then we're gonna have some fun with our dough and get baking. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes. Time for the oven mitts. Let's get that Dutch oven out of the oven. Okay, and it is hot, so you need to be careful, of course. So we're gonna put that down. Our bread has risen. Oh, it looks really, really nice. There it is there. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put the dough into this Dutch oven, and I'm gonna show you how I do it. Here we come and vent. I'm just gonna turn this upside down. It's gonna come in handy, what we did earlier. There we go. And it sits in there very, very nicely. Now that it's in there, I'm gonna take a pair of scissors and just cut along the top, cut a straight ridge along the top. Maybe I'll cut 2 ridges. Could even make a cross shape if you want, but you wanna cut into there about a 1/2 inch deep. That's going to allow the bread to rise nicely, and it's also going to create a nice texture to the top of our artisan bread. And including the texture, now we've got that nice shredded wheat that we've got on the top, and the oatmeal that's going to also add really nice look to the top of our bread. So lid goes back on, it goes back into the oven, still again at 475. We're going to bake it with the lid on for 30 minutes. Okay, let's get it in. Okay, back at you in 30 minutes. So it's been 30 minutes, time to take the lid off. Let's see what we got here. Oh, it's looking good already. All right, the lid is off. When you take the lid off, you're gonna notice a nice browning on the top of the crust already, but it's not quite done yet. It needs to sit for another anywhere from 6 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on your oven. My oven, it needs about 6-7 minutes, and it comes out absolutely perfect. So what I would suggest, keep an eye after 6 minutes, see where you're at, and see how long you can go before it burns. You don't want to burn it, but you want that nice dark color to your bread. Now, the reason to keep the lid on for the first 30 minutes is that retains all the humidity from the dough within that Dutch oven and just allows that bread to form absolutely perfectly. That's one of the keys. That's why you need that lid on for 30 minutes. Okay, can't wait to show you this. A few more minutes and out it's gonna come, probably about 6-7 minutes, and I'll show you the results. It's gonna be amazing. So it's been about 7 minutes. Time to take that bread out of the oven. Okay. It is gorgeous. Oh my goodness. Take a look at this bread and see how easy it came out. It comes out of that Dutch oven very, very nicely. It does not stick at all. Oh, look at this bread. Just check that out. Absolutely perfect. And look at the texture on the top I was talking about. There you go. By cutting the top a little bit with the scissors and adding that little bit of oatmeal and that crumb from the shredded wheat, absolute perfect looking bread. Nice high rise to it. Now here's the thing. It's fresh out of the oven. It's nice and warm. Smells great. You need to resist. Do not cut into the bread right now, and I'll tell you why. And also, I got to get to the milk. I haven't forgot about the milk, the magic of the milk. I'm going to show you that, so stay tuned. So with the bread, you want it to relax for at least 15 to 30 minutes. The longer the better, because it's still forming on the inside. That humidity is still inside the loaf, still doing its thing. And your crust is developing. Let it develop. 15 to 30 minutes, just sit tight, and then you'll slice into it. I'm gonna let it cool a bit, and I'm gonna slice into it, and I'll show you the magic of the milk. Our bread has now cooled, and if you noticed, I like to put it on a cooling rack so that the bottom doesn't sweat. But if you don't have a cooling rack, just let it cool right on a cutting board. It's no problem at all. On a wooden cutting board, that is. Okay, let's cut into this bread. It's cooled down. It's still, I'm going to say, slightly warm to touch. You could probably hear that. Oh, and look at the air pockets on that. You could probably hear that nice crunch. Look at this. You need to check this out. We got one big air pocket there right in the middle. That hasn't happened to me very often, but look at those nice air pockets. And now let's talk about the magic of the milk. The very, very first thing, very important to me with the milk, is the crust. If you notice, the crust on this bread is a little bit thicker. If you use water, again, I used skim milk, but you could use 1%, 2% whole milk as you wish. Skim has just got the closest consistency to water. But with the milk, you get a real nice thick crust. With the water, you'll get a thinner crust. The other important thing with the milk, the crumb. The white doughy part on the inside is referred to as crumb. And the crumb is going to be soft, silky smooth, and you have a nice texture to it. And it's all thanks to the milk. Now, I mentioned that this was the premiere episode of Cooking with the Koyas, but I have a lot more coming your way. So if you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe and then click on that bell icon beside the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any episodes, because with my Italian background, I have got a lot of fantastic recipes, tips and techniques to share with you. Everything from pastas to pizzas and everything in between. Now also, if you are a veteran chef and you've baked bread or baked before, or if you're a novice, I would like to hear from you. Drop me a line. Did you learn anything during this episode? Any tip that you picked up or technique? I'd love to hear if you did, or if you didn't, let me know that too, that you knew everything one way or another. Just love to hear from you, so drop me a line. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you in the kitchen and sharing all kinds of phenomenal recipes with you. And if you haven't yet, you really need to give this bread baking a try. Can't get any easier, and the results are absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to drizzling some olive oil and digging into this bread. Thanks for tuning in. So glad you could join me. And until next time, bon appetit.